This lesson is called The Birth of a Nation. In 1754 to 1776, the French and Indian War was fought between England and France, or it's sometimes referred to as the 7-Year War. England eventually wins, and they gain control over most of the land east of the Mississippi River. So what we see now is the map of the colonies is now beginning to expand and get bigger, especially for England. The colonies controlled by France are now pretty much moved north to Canada. All right, so England gains control of most of the land east of the Mississippi River. Now, this war cost a lot of money, as do most wars. Parliament, that's the government body in England that was in charge of England and also of the colonies, said, we've got to pay for this war. And the best way that we can pay for it is make the colonists pay for it. After all, the war was fought mostly on their land. The king and Parliament felt like they had done their part by providing British protection or British troops for the British colonists. So if they provide the protection, they felt like it was only right for the colonists to have to pay for it. So Parliament wanted American colonists to pay for the cost of the French and Indian War. In 1765, Parliament passed the Stamp Act. Now the Stamp Act is a tax that is it's called the Stamp Act because in order to write on a piece of paper or to have paper or to buy anything with paper in it, it had to have a stamp on it, and your book shows an example of that. And if your book didn't have that, that showed that you did not pay that tax. So the colonists are going to become very angry about this, and they're going to object to the Stamp Act. Now, they felt like Parliament was passing all these taxes without asking their permission. And so the colonists sent letters to England saying, hey, look, there's no taxation without representation. This means that you're taxing us without giving us a chance to say, yes, we want this tax, or we approve of this tax, or no, we don't want this tax. You're just doing it anyways. And so we start to see the colonists become very angry, and you hear this no taxation without representation. That means let us send somebody to Parliament to represent our colonies, and let us vote with you. But the Parliament says no. Now, in the colonists become very angry, and some colonists formed together what's called the Sons of Liberty, and they held protests throughout the colonies. A protest is a public show of dissatisfaction. If we're not happy about something, we're going to protest. I've drawn for you an angry colonist. Now, I'm not an artist, but just bear with me. He's saying no taxes. We had the Stamp Act is crossed out, showing that we don't want the Stamp Act. We don't want any taxes unless we are allowed to represent ourselves and to discuss this. They also came up with this idea to boycott all British goods. This means if you have an item that was made by England, don't buy it. And so many of the British businesses are going to start to lose money. Okay, as I said previously, British businesses are going to lose money, or they lost money, and so the British businesses complained to Parliament that, hey, the colonists are not buying my products because they're made in England. You've got to do something. I'm losing money here. And so Parliament canceled the Stamp Act, and they passed what's called the Tea Act. Now remember, all these taxes are because they want the colonists to pay for the French and Indian War. Well, in England, still today, and most English citizens drink tea. The colonists during that time, that's what they had to drink was tea, because oftentimes the water was polluted or just didn't taste very good, and so they would drink tea instead. Well, Parliament knew that the colonists were British citizens also, and that they liked their tea. So tax something that everybody uses, which is tea. So they passed what's called the Tea Act. Now, boy, here we go. The colonists are really angry about this. They don't like this at all, that now their tea is being taxed. And so some protesters in Boston dressed as Native Americans, and they go down to the Boston Harbor where the British ships are. And on board those British ships are big, huge crates of tea from England. And so the colonists climb on board these ships, and they take hatchets and things like that, and they start busting up these crates of tea and throwing them overboard into the ocean. Well, now obviously the tea is no good, and the tea companies are going to lose money on this, and the colonists are letting the British Parliament know, we're not going to pay for this. The Boston Tea Party, the colonists dumped the British tea into the Boston Harbor. British troops are sent to Boston. Now we're getting close to a major battle going to take place. So after the Tea Party, the British Parliament orders troops into Boston to punish these people of Boston for their role in the Boston Tea Party. Also, to punish Massachusetts and Boston, Parliament takes away all their colonial government. Says there can be no more colonial government here in this colony. This is really going to be a big problem, and it's going to lead to some major issues. Colonists called these laws the Intolorable Act. Intolerable means something that you cannot stand. Colonists living in English colonies unite against Britain. So before, each colony saw themselves as 13 independent or unique colonies, and they kind of felt like, well, this is only a problem Massachusetts is having with England. But now, after they began to, everybody is taxed, the colonists unite together and they say, we've got to do something. England or Britain is not listening to us. We've got to do something to get their attention. It's time for a revolution, or revolution means an overthrowing of the government. This means we've got to change the government, get rid of them. In September of 1774, representatives from all colonies except Georgia met in Philadelphia. So each of the colonies chose someone to represent them. They met in the city of Philadelphia to talk about this idea of the Intolorable Acts and what will we do as the colonies against England, our mother country. This meeting of the representatives was called the First Continental Congress. Again, that was in September 1774 in Philadelphia. This group of men met together in what's called the First Continental Congress. They sent a letter. They chose Thomas Jefferson to be the writer for them. They sent a letter to Britain to protest taxes and Intolerable Acts. They sent numerous letters to England saying, look, first of all, you all are passing these taxes without letting us have a chance to represent ourselves. When we don't like the taxes, you punish us by sending in British troops, and then you remove all of our government and our power here in the colonies. So we're not happy with this. They also decide, the First Continental Congress decides to stop trade with England. Okay? In April 1775, British troops marched into Lexington and Concord. Their orders were, go there and search for the colonists' weapons. We know the British troops or British government knew that the colonists were storing up weapons in preparation for war, and so they sent troops into Lexington and Concord. Now, your book refers to the men that were there at Lexington and Concord waiting on the British troops. They're called Minutemen. Well, the Minutemen and the British troops meet up at Lexington and Concord. I've been there, and shots are fired. We still really don't know today who it was that fired the first shots. We don't know if it was the English troops or if it was the colonists, but shots were fired. In June 1775, there's another battle that takes place at Bunker Hill in Boston. And in this battle, the British troops actually won the battle, but the colonists did a lot of damage. They killed over half or injured half of the British troops, and it made the colonists believe, hey, we've got a chance here. We can fight against the mighty British Army, the most powerful army on the face of the earth at this time. In April 1776, the Continental Congress meets again, and they draft what's called the Declaration of Independence. It was written by Thomas Jefferson, and they send it to England to notify England that we are now independent. This means we are no longer British citizens. Your laws that you pass, your taxes that you pass, are no longer going to have an impact on us. And so now we are independent. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed.